Okay, hi, good morning everyone and welcome. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Nadia Smith, Senior Communications Officer at Beaker Schroeder. In today's session, we'll be sharing a technical update on our solar solutions. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, where you can also access recordings of our previous webinars. If you have any questions, we'll address them during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So let me introduce our speakers for today. Grant Combrink, our Marketing and Segment Development Manager, and Gordon Ahrens, Segment Manager for Solar and Floodlighting. So here's a quick look at the agenda. Grant will start with a brief introduction to Beaker Schroeder, followed by Gordon, who will take you through today's topic. We'll conclude the session with a Q&A. Without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Gordon.
I think let me hop in there first. Okay, so I just want to...
My apologies.
Let me hop in there first. Thank you, Nadia, and welcome to the webinar. I just want to pause at the slide, and I think what's important here is the brand promise that we deliver to you as a local lighting manufacturer. So one, the longevity in the market, as you can see, how many years we've been manufacturing throughout sub-Saharan Africa and Southern Africa. Just wanted to pull to mute all your mics. Thank you. And then specifically around the technology, if you look, I mean, we're pushing almost 20 years now of LED manufacture, you know, and the amount of time, energy, and investment that goes into that, you know, with our in-house R&D department, in-house lighting design. So we're really tailor-making our solutions to make sure that we give you a foolproof solution that really will give you the application and the lighting for the application that you need. The local manufacturer is very important to us. We invest highly from skills, supplier, and enterprise development, including social economic development. So that's really something that we hold dear to us, is that we are a local manufacturer and we're giving you the best possible solution. Okay, Gordon, let's move on. So experts in lightability is not just a tagline, and as you can read there, what's most important is for this particular topic is the sustainability. We all talk about sustainability, we all talk about energy saving, but what does it actually mean to you? Because we're all under pressure across the board and globally, as you know, the situation that we're in. So yes, we do have to save energy, but what does that really mean to you? And let us consult you around that to make sure that you have the most sustainability or the most sustainable project, and where you're actually getting the most out of your lighting, whether that be off-grid specifically in this case, and then on-grid solutions with controls, IoT solution and that. So really this is important based on this tagline that our salespeople can consult you with. Okay, Gordon. And then lastly, and please take note of this because this is really important to us. So we offer the sustainable renewable light and lighting solution in the public space with a high specification, which is important to a lot of you specifiers, that's giving you the illumination that you need and where you need it and how you need it. And I think that's really important with the future in mind. Okay. Thank you, Gordon. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, colleagues, and welcome to our webinar. As Grant has said, I think, you know, let's push on into quite a loaded piece of content. I think we're just going to do the webinar series recap, important solar lighting inputs, load side calculations, and I want to specify it up front. It's load side calculations, and anything that is still got to come from a solar panel should be calculated by somebody well qualified. Then how to implement solar. Solar is very different, and we're going to cover that as well, to wired lighting. A lot of people still are stuck in the wired lighting environment. Beaker Schroeder lighting solutions, and then most certainly we're going to touch on what is going to be the future of solar lighting. I think a lot of you have seen salespeople come in with bright yellow faces and the sun shining, and they tell you all the nice things. And most certainly solar is fantastic. However, solar has limitations, and we as a company understand those limitations. We design within those limitations. And as Grant said, at the end of the day, we want to give you that sustainable solution that's going to last in the conditions that you intend using it. As a manufacturer, most certainly we believe that we want to give you a solar solution and not just a solar luminaire that comes out of a box off a ship into the customer's store. No, I think we want to provide you that solution. So most certainly in doing so, this is why we have all the webinars, is we believe in sharing that knowledge and then also the assistance tools. And a little bit later, Daneo is going to send across the energy calculator for you to be able to also do the calculations. We certainly as a company are most certainly not a closed book. We always believe in sharing. We are a proud South African company. And at the end of the day, we manufacture all our solar solutions in our factory in Olifantsfontein, South Africa. And I want to invite you at this moment to please talk to your salesperson and visit our new factory. It is a fantastic facility and we look forward to the future. I think our motto as a company is most certainly sharing. Sharing is caring, and we most certainly care for our customers. In terms of webinars that have passed, we started in 2020, in June 2020, with solar webinars, and we did 3 solar webinars through 2020 to 2022. We then moved on to 2024, but with a difference in that we had targeted solution discussions. So the first one most certainly was all-in-one solutions, followed by area lighting, and followed by road lighting. As Nadia said up front, you will get these presentations, so please click on that link. You will be able to get through to have a look at all our webinars, but also there are many normal wired lighting products that have been discussed there and solutions such as Excedra and so on. So in the webinar series recap, that's basically what happened in the first one, and I'm not going to run through everything except for the second last point, and that hasn't changed. Light is measured in lumen and not wattage, and you'll see in this presentation we're going to focus there again. In the second webinar, we discussed area lighting, and again, the last message, forget the wattage model, lumen, lumen, and again lumen. I cannot stress this more importantly for you. Then in the solar webinar 3, our engineer, Gert Labuschagne, covered the power of solar in the African context. He also discussed that it's a fact that irradiation differs between winter and summer, and I'm going to show you a little bit later quite an important map and most certainly why they differ. Solar solutions should only be designed around winter performance and not summer performance. And then Retief Kutzer, who heads up our applications department, most certainly discussed the array of lenses that we have. If we have a fantastic array of lenses, and at the end of the day, to get light out of a luminaire means nothing if you cannot position it in the correct places. And finally, if you're not able to measure, you most certainly cannot manage, and we are still striving for that end goal. So if you look at the location, I think I can't stress enough, location, location, location. In this particular case, we're looking at winter for Pretoria, and that is just under 4 kilowatt hours per square meter per day, okay? But if you look at Cape Town, you will see that Cape Town is around about 2.5. But interestingly, if you look at the left flank and the right flank, for basically 5 months of the year. Okay, Cape Town has much more irradiation than even Pretoria, which most certainly was a surprise to a lot of us. We always talk about the low irradiation in Cape Town, but however, you see in the winter, this is when it drops, and this is to what your solutions should be designed. A different irradiation certainly means a totally different design on your luminaire. So let's have a look at a bit of technology history. We started out with the lead acid or lead AGM batteries, very heavy. They had a severe disadvantage that they only had 50% depth of discharge. Solar in the early days used PWM controllers. Most certainly, they were not very good at processing the available irradiation. Today, we have MPPT controllers that are used, and they do a fantastic job. But, as they say, the market is moving, and soon we will have integrated D4I capabilities into the MPPT, and that most certainly is leaning to what I said earlier, as far as if you cannot measure, you cannot manage. So that is going to greatly assist with that down the road. If we look at LED technology, we started out around 100 lumen per watt. Some people have most certainly moved to 160 as a company, and again, thanks to our R&D team, we have actually moved up to 260 lumen per watt in the Beaker Shredder solutions. The interpretation, obviously, of this milestone is that your capital expenditure, remember that if you cannot space far enough, you have to plant another pole, you have to dig another hole, okay? And ultimately, you are able to save 2.6 times the value of your project if you are going to space further. There is a very good standard in the market called ARP 035, and most certainly, while you will bring in the capital cost of each luminaire, if you space further, it will give you a project cost per kilometer, and I would honestly suggest that you please contact your salesperson, and they will be able to help you with that, and in terms of the calculations, to get it right for your project. Understanding the load side, and as I said earlier, please, this is load side, and I cannot stress it enough. Load side is important, but also the dimming calculations, essentially interpreting what you will get from any person's sheet that they give you as far as a data sheet. The fact of the matter is, and we cannot get around this, and this is why you have to design around winter, the energy source must carry the nighttime load. Again, just for those of you who have perhaps not heard our interpretation previously of energy source, you have amazing energy sources around. At the moment, some of them too expensive to incorporate, such as supercapacitor. And at the moment, the lithium iron phosphate battery is used. Especially on long winter nights of over 13 hours, you most certainly need to ensure that you're still getting light out of the luminaire. It's important to calculate the dim profile before you start the load calculations. And I'll be going through a couple of calculations just now. The energy source calculator contains both the energy source and dimming calculations, and that will also, as I say, be shared with you after the webinar. And again, I stress, please, the load side only. So let's move to what the dimming sheet looks like. Some people work on 10 hours, some people work on 11, 12, and even 13 hours around the world. And we do support quite a few people around the world. In South Africa, because of the South African conditions and most certainly close Africa sub-Saharan conditions, we found it good to work on 11-hour dim profile. And I'm going to show you in the calculations why we work on 11 and what happens when you go to the summer. You will see there under segment 5 is essentially a blue block. In that blue block, it means this is the segment that is designed to move to accommodate winter and summer. In other words, to say, while we're calculating for 2 hours on the profile of 11 hours for that segment. It may be that in the summer, that segment may only be 0.5. In the winter, it might be 3.5, 4 hours. So that is, if you wish, the moving segment in our charge controllers. So if you look at typically, and I've chosen the 12-hour DIMM profile here just as an example, I always make it a different color so that you know with which you are working. You can put those numbers any which way you want. You can have them all 2 hours. You can make them whatever you want, as long as at the end of the day, you are coming to the figure of 12, then you will get an accurate calculation within your DIMM profile. So going to the 11 hours that Beaker Shredder uses, you will see the standard on top. It will come out as 100% all the way. And then we have a non-sensor version within our products. You will see that I have changed the 11-hour DIMM profile to accommodate that DIMM profile, and therefore it comes out at a 65% light output average. And I think it's important to stress the average. Simply, many people, if they get 65% at school, most parents are happy. The reality, unfortunately, is that in that part of 65, there is a 40%, and then the parents may not be so happy. So that is basically the average DIMM profile. So there you will see the 1 hour at 80%. This is the 2 hours at 100%. And then we have 6 hours at 40%, and we have the last 2 hours at 100%. And this is how you will put it into your DIMM calculator, your DIMM profile calculator. So here we are going to handle firstly the calculations on the non-sensor version. And if you look at our brochures, you will see no wattage within the brochures. However, one needs that to calculate. So what do? You will then take the lumen divided by the lumen per watt, and that will ultimately give you a wattage, which you are going to insert into your calculator. On the left-hand side of the sheet, you will see that the 22 is inserted over there, and we'll go further to that. I want to bring your attention to this asterisk over here and why it is there, and you will see that it's multiplied by 0.85. We have, through all our years in solar, realized that it was fair to put in this calculation, because even in a very bad weather day, call it dark clouds, etc., you most certainly will get at least a 15% charge within that day, and this is why we have it in there. So you have the 22 watt, as I said, on 11 hours, 65% DIMM profile, 2-day autonomy. And your autonomy, if you start playing with this calculator, you will understand how it really affects it. And then most importantly, we are ending on 26.11, the blue block circled, and it will tell you there, compare your answer in terms of your rated battery. In this case of this solution, we have a 36 amp hour battery, so we are nice and safe. Again, here we are calculating on 13 hours. All right, after 13 hours, we have a figure of 30.86 in terms of amp hours. And again, that is fine because we have a 36 amp hour battery. If we go to the summertime now, where we have 9.5, ultimately, that's fine. 9.5 hours, that's all that's changed. And most importantly, we are still working off an 80% depth of discharge, which is acceptable within the industry, and I'll show you a little bit later why. We have a 36 amp hour, so in the summertime, you're almost running your battery quite low, which is good for the battery. Okay. Now we move to the sensor DIMM profile. So here we have the sensor version within our Sol One Mini, which is what I'm using today for the exercise. I'm showing you 3 models, but on top, there's also a non-sensor version for the normal irradiation areas. And then the 2 at the bottom are for the high irradiation areas. You will see typically in the high irradiation area, you have 7,600 lumen versus 4,900 lumen, 977 lumen for the normal irradiation areas. Again, what will you do here? You will do the calculation for that sensor version, and you will come out at a figure of 21 watts. But most importantly, for the purpose of calculations, those normal irradiation areas only run off an 18 amp hour battery. This is how we do the calculation. We have 100% that it ramps up to. Most certainly, when it's in the dim state, it will ramp down to 30%. And this particular time, and again, if you purchase something from over the waters and the box arrives, you will get it as you get it. Ultimately, here you can decide on the time. So what we say is, if for argument's sake, you're going to have 20-second intervals, you get 3 triggers per minute as far as the load side is concerned. So let's have a look at it. In this particular sensor unit, we are allowing for 2 hours of triggers. Again, meaning that if you have 3 sensors within the minute, you are essentially allowing for 180 triggers through the night based on the 2 hours. Okay. You then move across to calculate the dimmed version, and most importantly, you are keeping 11 hours. We then transfer that dim profile down into the calculation, and you will see that we are good and safe at 16.49 on an 18 amp hour battery. Okay. So let's move on to what happens on a 13-hour night. So on a 13-hour night, we are moving to 17.92, which is all good, and just under the limit of 18 amp hours. And again, that will be in the winter. I want to say to you that the solar panel side is extremely important. Our engineer calculates if you have a small little solar panel, it's not going to even give enough power to charge the 18 amp hour battery. And we have balanced that out, and we have a 55 watt panel on our luminaire, and we are comfortable that it will meet that to charge that battery. So in the peak summertime, it's very easy, 9.5. Again, we are fantastically under at 14.24. So on an 18 amp hour battery. Then you get people who say, no, can you please raise the output to 27 because you seem to be quite safe. Okay, let's do the calculation. It's actually very easy. Your first problem is to come to under 18 amp hours on a 27 watt output on the 43%, you are coming to a 95% depth of discharge. Now, some may say, okay, that's fine. The question is it really fine on an 18 amp hour battery? Well, let's have a look-see. You then have the 27 amp hour, and remember, you have an 18 amp hour battery. So what is in the blue square is still under 18 amp hours, 13 hours, but look at where your battery is going to. Your battery is going to 112%. Those of us that have gone well through school will understand that the limit is 100%. You can't go 101. 101 means it's not going to happen. So the solution fails. I want to show you, though, ultimately, that when will this particular battery fail? And very simply, after 11.6 hours, you would have reached your 100% depth of discharge. So the answer at the end of the day certainly is, please, we ensure that you have an output in wattage. And I've stressed again, wattage is only important for the manufacturer to decide what battery, what combination of solar panel, and then the illumination is going to be the best solution. So on to wired versus solar. The implementation is hugely, hugely different. The engineering mindset most certainly needs to be adjusted to accommodate better understanding of solar solution lighting. Solar is pure DC, so there's no normal losses associated with AC to DC energy transition. And that's important because if you're coming in with AC, you're going through a driver that will then transfer everything to DC because all LEDs are DC. So you will have losses. In this case, in solar, you do not have those losses. We also have PCBs while we're using the same lens platform, at least the same PCB platform. We have a solar PCB designed to output much more extreme but safe lumen out of the PC board. In terms of wired lumen, our solutions in Beaker Shredder, and not on the same platform, but we can go up to 194 is the highest that we can go, 194 lumen in wired lighting. In solar, as I mentioned, we are pushing out 260 lumen per watt, and that is amazingly different. The wired mindset most certainly has always been and is still energy saving. I got asked the other day from a customer, for years and years, you have been speaking to us about the lowest wattage, and now when we're talking about solar, you're saying we shouldn't worry. And the answer is very simple. When we talk about the lowest wattage, you're actually paying for all the wattage, and therefore you want the lowest wattage with the best lumen. If you are moving to solar, at the end of the day, you need maximum lumen because your project must be well illuminated, and you want the least energy in watts. Why is it important? The answer is very simple. You're not paying anymore for the power, but most certainly you are interested as a customer to get the most lumen out on your project. That will most certainly translate to a smaller battery, and the cost of most of our systems lies within the battery. And so at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you have the cheapest possible system with the best performing system. So when your project is designed, the important outcomes for light levels and spacing is purely based on one thing called lumen. Is it possible? And that's perhaps the question, because a lot of people take old historic specifications and they move them into solar. And is it possible to measure wattage in the luminaire? It's absolutely not possible. If somebody finds a way to do that, please be free to reach out to me. I would love to learn as well. And then the question is, if you put out a specification for a tender, wattage is immeasurable. Why would you want something in your specification which is totally immeasurable? Specify the lighting level that you require. That's what you need to specify within your tender document. The wattage model should be dead when we're talking about solar. When you measure lighting levels, you're obviously using a light meter. I think there's only one way to do it, right? Ultimately, what does a light meter measure? Does it measure wattage or lumens out of the luminaire? It only measures the lumen output onto your project. So in terms of our solutions currently, we have the Beaker Solar, which is the oldest of our solutions. It's many, many years old already, but still highly effective at 186 lumen per watt. We have a solar flood range up to 227 lumen per watt. We have the Suzella, which is a post-op, and you'll see that a little bit later, up to 221 lumen per watt. The Solar Flood Eco at 224 lumen per watt. And then lastly, most certainly, the Sol One range goes up to 260 lumen per watt. Now, one would say, why do you have so many solutions? Well, very simply, I think if I show you this answer here, so we have a sports field, and as you can see, there are all-in-one luminaires situated on top of each mast. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 masts with 12 luminaires on each in a 360 circle. When it came to the nighttime, this is what you got. Fantastic illumination around the pole. But actually, we would hope that most of the football is actually played in the middle of the field. So certainly, all of our solutions provide different illumination for different type of projects. So I'm just going to run through a video quickly, which will show you all our solar lighting solutions. So there are many more fantastic projects, and most certainly you have to cap a video at a certain time length. So I want to say to you that we are very blessed in Beaker to have our own factory here in South Africa. But most importantly, we have a fantastic, brilliant R&D team, which certainly gives much attention to making sure that all the solutions that get rolled out of our factory are actually sustainable and workable. The design that they look at, most certainly, we have, again, conditions that many people in the world perhaps don't understand. And that is extreme sun, extreme heat, and very, very dusty environments. And this is why to just import a luminaire, which is perhaps IP65, from over the waters, yes, of course, maybe cheaper, but we will talk perhaps down the road that it may not work. We have 48 years of lighting knowledge within this company in Beaker Schroeder, and most certainly we aim to build our solar solution around all the knowledge that we've gained and we develop for Africa and beyond. So if I look at the solar development roadmap, as I said, the Beaker Solar is one of the oldest, and that's up to 11,000 lumen.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Gordon, I think we just lost you there. Gordon, just pause this.
You're cutting out there?
No, Grant, I think the problem is on your side.
Sorry about that. We seem to had a little bit of a sound issue there on Gordon's side. Yeah.
Grant, I think the problem is more on your side. I think Gordon can continue.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. As I say, technology, most certainly as a company at Beaker Schroeder, we most certainly hope that as I said, our brilliant R&D team actually looks beyond what they're designing to all the possibilities that can go wrong. And so we also look at that from our R&D team. So the Beaker Solar, most certainly the oldest of the lot, up to 11,000 lumen. We then have the solar pole because architects and developers said we want something more aesthetically pleasing, and obviously this is when the solar pole was developed with the vertical solar panels. It's not as efficient as, call it, the solid panel on top, and it's going up to 8,600 lumen. Then in South Africa and in Africa, we have a lot of high mast solutions, and so we developed a solution for that. We first started off with the Solar Flood and later came the Solar Flood Premium. And as I said, the Solar Flood Premium delivers up to 21,000 lumen up in the high irradiation areas. The Solar Flood Eco, it is a much more cost-effective, but a brilliantly designed engineering solution where the batteries are most certainly in that housing, and we just need an external solar panel. And recently we did an SED project in the Eastern Cape for a community down there where we have a sports field, and it is extremely well illuminated. And most certainly, again, your salespeople can share that information with you. If we look at all-in-one solutions, we have the Suzela, which is up to 4,500 lumen. We have the Sol1 Maxi up to 19,000 lumen, and we have the Sol1 Mini up at 7,685 lumen. Top-class solutions. In particular, I want to focus on our latest launch, which is the Sol1 Mini. And here, unlike from the Sol1 Maxi, where we had a fixed spigot because of weight and size and many other reasons, we have designed this with either a bottom entry or side entry. And why? Simply because in the infrastructure, you have these bowed poles sort of that come out, and you are able then to adjust the rake. Some poles actually lie down at a negative rake, and you're able to lift that a little bit to make sure you still get good illumination on the road surface below. We have a removable battery cover, so most certainly if you ever need to replace batteries in the future, and I would say this is the cornerstone of all our product. Every single product is not a use and throw away product. You will be able to change batteries going forward. In terms of the battery and gear compartment, most certainly they are well separated to ensure that there's minimal heat transfer in between. And again, because this is a low output solution, we have up to 258 lumen per watt on this particular Sol1 Mini, and we are using a bulb diffuser. The bulb diffuser pushes light, assists light a little bit more down the roads, and this will be used sort of in urban conditions, and you will get a better illumination out of that. Also available with the optional motion sensor, either via PIR or microwave. So the next project that I'm going to show you is a project that we did for Sunroll up in Musina, and I think it's quite self-explanatory. I think we all know it's often in the news as far as the delays on the Beitbridge border post. That particular checkpoint which is a couple of kilometers before the border post, hopes to most certainly reduce the load. Unfortunately, every time they put lighting up there, it was stolen and vandalized, and so most certainly we came with a high mast solution there, and as you can see, it's brilliantly illuminated. The second one that I'm going to show you most certainly is also a SONRAL project, and this goes into the border of Botswana, and it's a 3-kilometer long stretch of lighting. And I think most importantly, I just want to draw your attention to the excellent uniformity that has been provided for this amazing solution. One of the most important things is, at the moment, especially when you're lighting a road of such high quality, is that you have to place your poles a little bit closer together. So the answer is, if you have 250 HPS typically on a pole and you want to now replace it with the solar, it's not easily going to work because you don't have enough power yet in the solar all-in-one luminaires. Most certainly we have that power, but in totally a different solution, and we are busy with the project currently on the N4, which will certainly form part of our future webinar, where we are lighting up the N4 highway at quite a high speed. So I think, as Grant initially said, we don't want to just offer you solutions. We want to offer you sustainable, workable solutions to our solar options, as we have done for 48 years as far as normal lighting is concerned. Please contact your Beaker Schroeder team to assist you commercially, and most certainly I would be happy to come down and see you and discuss your project and see what the solutions are. I think this is most important, in that simply light equals life equals economic activity and also equals safety, especially in urban areas and especially for the country's women and children. A couple of our solutions that we've done: we have done the beachfront in the Western Cape with the solar pole. We have done the Beaker Solar at the wine farm down in the Cape as well. And then this particular project is actually amazing, and as I'm going to just share with you a bit of the information. This was done on a road, and normally you are able to, with LED lighting, cut off the road quite nicely. In other words, you don't have spill lighting on the sides. In this particular case, it is a gang-rich area, and again, all the infrastructure that was put in there within 2 to 3 weeks was stolen. So what the council said to us in terms of this project is, please, we don't only want the light on the road, we want the light to go across the sides of the roads to make sure that the motorists can travel there, and so they are not suddenly surprised by somebody coming out the dock. And then I share you the video. Couple of important things that I just want to highlight of that project, and that's for all solar flood. At the end of the day, your battery life is affected by extreme heat. You will note that we use firstly a fixed mast, so it's totally vandal proof. This is in the Eastern Cape, where winds howl at amazing speeds. The reality is when we did the first installation, everybody said, watch, we'll see when the first panel flies off. Well, we are from 2023, we're in 2026 now. We haven't lost a panel, and most certainly the solution is positive, and the batteries are still strong. So those who worry about battery life, we are almost at 3 years in terms of battery life, and we expect much more. Why? Because you have essentially cooling at a 20-meter height. So the future is all about measurement, controls, and better understanding of performance. This is a project which has been run by our R&D, where we have selected certain projects and asked the customer, can we please place a node within your project for monitoring? And obviously from that, we have learned quite a lot. And I want to share one of the projects with you, which is on that exact Groblersbrug project, where we have installed one luminaire on the northern side and one luminaire on the southern side. Remember that being in the southern hemisphere, the aim is to point all panels to the north. However, as we know, with roads, the road goes where the road needs to go. And therefore, the design of this luminaire is most important, because if your panel is facing south, it's still got to operate. So you probably will get a much better performance if your panel is facing north, but you get good performance on the southern side. So I want to draw your attention to the power, which is 133 watts, as you will see in that white block, and that was on the 9th of March this year. On the southern side, you will see that we were only able to get 117 watts of power. So therefore, the answer is there is a difference. And that is why our Sol1 Maxi is of a fixed spigot, so there can be no installation errors from contractors. Unfortunately, most of the imported stuff is really on a hingeable spigot, and if that is over the design of the luminaire, such as contractor error of 15 degrees or something like that, to try and get the light onto the road, you most certainly will lose your battery over the winter. Again, on the northern side, this is the charging of the battery that we're looking at, and you will see that on the northern side we're able to extract 37 amp hours of charge, and you will see that the green line most certainly is above the blue line. The blue line was the discharge, and as you can see, that is pretty constant every single evening. But if you look towards the left, there were 2 days where most certainly the charge was questionable, and that's okay. The luminaire still continued to operate, and on this particular day, on the 6th of March, it actually recovered almost, if you wish, losses from the previous days. On the southern side, we're only able to extract 35 amp hours, and you will see again there was also the recovery. So the system that we use is self-recoverable, and I think that's also most important, and I'm not so sure that what's imported from a box over the waters is going to do the same for you. If you look in this particular case, there was a lot of bad weather, and for purpose of presentation, one should always only show, as they say, where it works. We don't believe in that. We believe in the truth. And if we look at the panel facing north, you will see that you have a profile there which says, remember we spoke about the non-sensor profile, so you will have it 100% in the early part of the evening. It goes down in this particular case. On the left-hand side, you will see the graph. This particular case, the customer wanted a 50%. He wanted it up, so which means you just reduce the wattage, okay? You had 50%, and then the early 2 hours of the morning, it ramps back up to 100%. Again, here on the southern side, you will see that while the graph looks hectic, if you wish, the reality is, even at its worst on the 9th of March, it was still operating at 83% brightness, and it will self-recover as it has done, and we have looked at that. So most certainly it has self-recovered, but if you have the wrong luminaire there and the wrong angle, you most certainly will lose your luminaire. Important to share the most exciting parts of the technology moving forward. So normally there are 6 lights on a mast, and if you count those panels, the solar panels, there are 7 solar panels on this particular mast. Okay, we can do on the ring mast, we can do the solution with 7 panels. On a fixed mast, because of the way it works, we do it with 8 panels. So most certainly, and why? Simply because you have a camera mounted on the mast as well as Wi-Fi. Everybody always wants a camera, and I said, that's fine, we can do a camera, no problem. But what do you want to do with the footage? You need to transfer the footage somewhere, and for that you need Wi-Fi or similar technology to push off the images. And at night, this was actually the result. Here in one of the Johannesburg informal settlements, and most certainly it was a good result and will continue to be rolled out. I'm going to show you most certainly one of the things, and we spoke about earlier on the D4i integrated drivers. So we will be looking also at different sensors. And the next image I'm going to, or the next video, little short video I'm going to show you, is what we are hoping to achieve through our one platform. And again, most importantly, we are the only company at the moment that I'm aware of in South Africa and Africa that can run both our wired systems and in the future our solar systems off the Exedra platform. So most certainly, I think that is absolutely the future. Today, you will see everybody offering sensor dimmed luminaires. Why do they do that? Simply, you can run it off a much smaller battery, they believe, and that's not the case in our company. We don't believe that, and most certainly, at the end of the day, if you drive with a car and you drive past, that sensor is going to switch on long after your car has passed. So most certainly, please be careful where you consider sensors. And in one of the earlier webinars where I handled sensors, you also have a height limit in terms of sensors. So be careful where you want to supply that. And then one most important piece of information, as you as a specifier, as a customer, you have always wanted test reports for wired luminaires. Why should it be any different with solar luminaires? And both our Sol1 Maxi and our Sol1 Minis most certainly have both the 60598 as well as the SANS 475 certification. And I would urge you to ensure that your standard doesn't drop because of solar lighting. And thank you very much. And that's me done. Nadia, back over to you and Grant. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. So that takes us to the Q&A. So we've got some questions already. So please do type your questions into the chat here if you have questions. I will get going with question number 1. So I will read it out. Gordon, you qualified your statement by mentioning that there are no formal losses between the absence of AC/DC. Where there is current flow in the conductor, there will be scientific losses, although they may be negligibly small.
No, indeed, negligibly small, and so small that it's not necessary. Remember that ultimately, even if you have wiring, the longer your wiring is, the longer your losses. Everything is nice and close by. So in terms of the losses, they certainly will be extremely minimal, that it's not even considered in the calculation. But a very good point. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So then the next one is there protection so that you don't discharge the battery to 100? What features for lightning protection on the solar lights, and what is the quality on the battery manufacturer?
So perhaps we have Peter van Aert on the line, and he's our head of R&D. I think Peter may be best qualified to actually answer that question. And Peter, can I leave that question to you to answer in more technical depth and detail? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gordon, and good day, everybody. Frikkie, on your question, so is there protection so that you don't discharge the battery to 100%? Indeed, there is. Yeah, we do make sure that we do not discharge the battery down to 100% completely. That is built into the system already. In terms of lighting protection, we do not have any additional external lighting protection on our systems because of the way we've designed it and the material we use. We have not seen any lighting issues to date. Of course, there's no mains connected to the unit. It becomes different when you have a hybrid solution that's connected to mains, then lighting becomes a much bigger factor. But we have up to date not seen any issues regarding lighting protection or requirements for the solar solutions that we currently offer. In terms of the quality of our battery manufacturer, we are using multiple battery manufacturers in our solutions. We do qualify them specifically. We use remote suppliers. We visit them, and we have quite a lot of quality requirements that they have to meet. They're also audited by our global company. So we, as you know, we are part of Schroeder. So they have also vetted and approved the suppliers that we use currently in all our solutions.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, thank you. I think most importantly, as Peter said, all our solar solutions are what we would term island solutions. And in other words, there is no connection to Earth, and therefore you should not have any challenges. If you look at our all-in-one solutions, all 3 of them are made from a material called ASA, which is typically most certainly UV resistant, and it's the same material, nice and hard and strong and robust, that you would have on your motor vehicle. So most certainly it's the same material. Thank you.
Okay, great. Then on to the next question. Hi, Gordon. Where in the Eastern Cape was the project completed? I'm interested in the sports field lighting solution. I think that was still relating to...
Yes, indeed.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that was on the Solar Flood Eco. So that was a community project that we did in Tsinsa, and most certainly, Nadia, we have I think we have quite a bit of information on that project, on the SED project that we did there. And so most certainly, I'm sure we can take your details and make sure that we happily share that with you.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right, next question. Do you anticipate improve amp hour capacity as battery technologies develop?
I would say yes, but again, we have a very qualified Peter van Aert perhaps to respond to that. Yeah, Peter, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, of course, we do expect improvements. We are constantly monitoring what's happening in the battery space. So we do expect that there would be improvement in terms of the cell density going forward. And if, of course, if it does, it will allow us to look at bigger capacity batteries. Even we are looking already at different technologies. We have used various technologies throughout our solar journey up to this point in time, which, as Gordon mentioned, included we started off with gel cells with lead acid. We even have quite a few solutions out there that's running on supercapacitors. We have currently the lithium iron phosphate. And going forward, we are definitely looking at what else is coming onto the market. And we do expect, of course, with all the interest globally in energy, that there will be some technology in the future that could improve our capacity in our products as well.
Thanks, Peter. I think it's also important to mention the other side, as I said earlier. It's fine to have a bigger battery. The reality is that if you don't have the solar panel that is able to charge up and ensure that your battery stays healthy, then so we try, or the R&D team most certainly ensure that by means of balancing the solar panel size with the battery, so it's not going to help us to get something which can go up to 120 amp hours, for argument's sake, and put that in the SOL1 Maxi, simply because you will still be limited by the solar panel ability to charge it up. So I think when we look at that, we most certainly don't look at it only in terms of the battery, but most certainly in terms of the solution, which includes the charge controller as well as the solar panel.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next one. The Musina project is impressive. The fact that solar modules are not necessarily angled to face north, they are facing the sky. Isn't that affecting the maximum harvesting of the sun?
So thank you. That's a very good question. Thank you, Nadia. So thank you for that compliment on Musina. Most certainly, we are very proud of the project. So firstly, while it may not seem so on the video, but there's a 5-degree tilt on the solar panel. And the reason for that is obviously to ensure that if there is rain and water, that we are able to wash off dust and dirt that has accumulated over time. It is facing north at a 5-degree rake. And why have we done that? Again, it's about balancing solutions. You would get most certainly far more out of the panel if you were to rake it up to 30 degrees, but it would actually increase the cost of your mast and your structure because the wind area just becomes amazingly big. And so, again, it's all about balance. And this is why with our mast partners, mast supplier partners, and our R&D team, we certainly comb this very finely. And yes, I think just to put it in perspective, as far as Musina, solar and perhaps people say you're oversimplifying it. No, if you are doing a project and you suddenly encounter rock on the right-hand side of the road, no problem. Just make the hole on the left-hand side. There's no cable to worry about that's got to run particularly on the one side. And if you have rock, for argument's sake, there's no deep trenching and things involved. You take something, you blow out a hole, you put in a foundation, you put up a mast. And ultimately, after your curing time, you have immediate and instant light.
Okay, thanks. Okay, the next one. Do you perhaps give training for installation specifically?
Yes, I would say, firstly, with all our products, and again, thank you to our R&D team, and in particular Gert Labuschagne. There is most certainly an installation manual attached in each and every box that goes out. But installation, of course, if there's a project, we welcome you to come to our factory, or ultimately we come to you. We've actually did a project a while ago in Durban where we actually sent our team down there to give on-site training. So most certainly, yes, on-site training is a core responsibility that we have as a company, and we're happy to do that at any time.
Thank you, Gordon. Is there no cleaning of solar panels required during dry seasons?
Again, this is a question that often pitches up, and you know, one says, well done to the R&D team, simply because when we do our initial design, we do it with a 20% loss in terms of the dirt factor. So certainly in the dry area, I want to qualify that and say to you, though, if you are in a normal area where you have normal dust, such as if you wish Messina, it won't be necessary to clean any panels. If you are in a mining environment, there's constant high dust and high areas, of course, you would have to put some type of maintenance schedule in place to be able to clean off the panels. But ultimately, in a normal installation, in normal conditions, out anywhere in South Africa, our R&D team has allowed for a dirt percentage factor in terms of our calculation. I hope that answers your question.
I will move on so long to the next question. Do you have your products connected with Excedra?
At the moment, no, but I can tell you it's pretty close. When I say pretty close, I'm still hoping for this year for our product to be connected. Our company most certainly also is the owner of a company called Fortinus Schroeder, which is based in Austria, which is also a solar specialist company. And they have done quite a lot of developments in terms of the systems. And we look forward to getting that information very soon and implementing it into Excedra. At the moment, no. In terms of perhaps what you're referring to, we are currently on a standalone system, which is where we're getting our data from. Can we incorporate that to you? Of course, we can do that. No problem. What you would need is a local SIM card, and we will give you access to the platform where you would be able to monitor your project as well yourself. Yeah. Thanks, Nadia.
Okay, thank you. The next question, what are the standard sizes of battery? Can we list them on the calculation sheet to know the options available and choose from available options? And then also, can you please share the ARP035 calculator or download link?
Yeah, so we have different types of batteries, and they come in different sizes. Most certainly, the sizes are contained within your brochure, and I would please ask you to have a discussion with your salesperson, and they will happily engage with you and show you with each particular luminaire. We have flat packs. We have, if you wish, something that looks like the car battery, the square battery. So most certainly we have different types of batteries with different capacities, but that's all shared within the brochure.
Okay, can one use the existing pole for the solar light solution if the mounting space and height are adequate? Is there a chance to reuse the poles?
So the answer is yes, and the answer is also no. So let me say that if you use any of the all-in-one solutions, and this is why we, especially on the SOL1 Maxi, which is a slightly heavier luminaire, you will see that the battery sits in the back compartment and the rest of the luminaire forward, so it's well balanced. and certainly any of those solutions can fit on a standard pole. If you look at the solar pole solution, which has the vertical panels, yes, of course, that can be installed on a standard pole. If you are going to the Beaker solar solutions or any of the floodlight solutions like the solar flood, the answer is no, you would need a different pole.
Thanks, Gordon. And then how often would you need to replace batteries? Every 5 years, 10 years or more?
So again, the jury is out on that. And I would answer you like this. We most certainly offer a standard warranty of battery, okay, which comes from our suppliers, which is 5 years. However, if for argument's sake we had to move that battery or luminaire into the high heat areas of the Middle East, we certainly are going to reduce the battery warranty down to possibly 3 years. We do anticipate though, and remember what I'm saying now, as far as the battery is concerned, you're actually only using, and I'm talking about a normal night of 11 hours, you're using 40% of the battery per evening, because we are only discharging down to 80%, and on a 2-night autonomy, you are using only 40%. If you go to the summer, as I showed you within the calculations, you are using far less of the battery, which means it will last fantastically long. But as we know, winter is also coming, so it should balance it out. And ultimately, we are of the opinion that you should get far more than the 5-year warranty out of batteries, especially since all our batteries, and you will see all our solutions, are based on one principle, that we keep the batteries in the shade in the heat of the day, and ultimately, especially on our solar flood, you have amazing cooling at 20 meters up in the air. So most certainly you will keep a cooled solution. On the all-in-one solutions, obviously it gets much warmer, and so your battery expectation is most certainly closer to the 5-year warranty that we offer.
Thank you, Gordon. I don't see any more questions. I think we have answered them all. So with that, I will say thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. So just a reminder that we will be emailing you the presentation, the calculator, and also the link to the recording of this webinar next week. So before you leave, please stay online to complete a short poll with just 3 short questions. We truly value your feedback. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia.